Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the campus of Lipscomb University and our fall Nashville Business Breakfast. If this is your first Nashville Business Breakfast, we are absolutely thrilled that you're with us and hope you will come back. We have 4 of these each calendar year. This is the 4th in our series for 2017. But we are glad you're here if you're with us for the first time. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here this morning, surviving. If you're here, you survived Halloween parties. You survived another World Series game, which seems to be affecting a lot of people around my office in terms of their level of awareness at 9 a.m. each morning. But if you're here, what you're really here about is the excitement of Nashville as a community. And all the things that we have going on, and this morning is certainly a celebration of another amazing thing that we have going on in Nashville. So glad you're with us. Welcome. I want to call your attention particularly to a couple of things on your table. There is a small little card that you'll see that I'm sure you're going to hear more about, which is about season tickets for our inaugural season. I want to also call your attention to the Lighting of the Green, which is an annual event on the Lipscomb campus. It's always featured Amy Grant. We're excited this year that the show this year will feature Amy and Michael W. Smith. It's going to be a great night. That's November 28th. Once again, I'm glad you're with us. We welcome you to the campus of Lipscomb and the Nashville Business Breakfast. As always, it's my privilege to introduce you, Kate Herman, the president and publisher of the Nashville Business Journal. The Nashville Business Journal is a wonderful partner in this event with Lipscomb. So would you please join me in welcoming Kate Herman? Thank you.
Well, good morning. So nice to see you all here this morning, and we appreciate our partnership with Lipscomb to consistently have these Nashville Business Breakfasts and to learn and connect, which is what business is all about. And so I have more people to connect you to this morning, and that is our sponsors of this morning's program. And first, I'd like to introduce you to Dwayne Dillard, who's audit partner at Crowe Horwath. If you'd please give him a warm welcome this morning.
Thanks, Kate. Good morning and welcome to the Nashville Business Breakfast. Crowe Horwath is a top 10 public accounting consulting firm, both in the U.S. and also internationally through Crowe Horwath International. We always look forward to this great event and appreciate our partnership with Lipscomb and the Business Journal, as well as our good friends at PNC Bank and Lee Company that are also sponsors. Welcome, enjoy your breakfast, and thank you for attending today.
Thanks to Dwayne. And next I'd like to introduce you to another one of our sponsors, and that is PNC. And this morning you get to hear from Doreen Langley, Senior Vice President of PNC. Doreen, thanks for being here as well.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. PNC is a top 10, as Dwayne mentioned, a top 10 bank here in the community. We go as deep as the retail and go as high as the large corporates. We're a proud sponsor to be part here with the Lipscomb family, and we'd like to thank Kate and the folks here at Lipscomb for coming out early and providing this breakfast for us. I'm always amazed at the quality and the character and of the folks that came out this early in the morning. So thank you for joining us one more time for this event.
Thanks, Doreen. We appreciate having you here. And last but not least, Lee Company is a sponsor of the program this morning. And Eric Hill, Director of Business Development for Facilities Solutions, is here to say a few words. Thanks, Eric.
Good morning. I was last week at the Growth of Nashville breakfast that NBJ put together. And they were talking about all the different reasons why Nashville's growing. And I was actually thinking that it was probably late 90s when Nashville became a national brand. And one of the major reasons of that, I believe, was the Tennessee Titans and the Nashville Predators. And I remember at that time, the naysayers, they were saying, the NFL will never work in a small town like Nashville. And then, the Predators, hockey will never work in the South. Well, I don't know if y'all remember, but we're about that far from a Super Bowl. And last year, anybody heard anything about the Stanley Cup Finals, everybody was talking about Smashville. So I'm excited to hear about the soccer opportunity this morning with MLS. And I just want to take a second to tell you a little bit about Lee Company. 2 days ago, I read a quote that is just, it's been on my heart and mind nonstop, and it is this: there are two pains in life. One is the pain of discipline, the other one is the pain of disappointment. If we can persevere through the pain of discipline, we'll never have to experience the pain of disappointment. Most of you are leaders at the companies that you're at, and y'all are thinking, how do we get better? How do we grow? And I think if we will align our minds and work together instead of trying to do things separately, we can get a lot accomplished. So with that in mind, I'd like to just tell you high level, we're a mechanical contractor. We've invested a lot in technologies with a shift from a very reactive industry and becoming more of a predictive one. So whether you're in debating building a new building and you're needing a construction partner, or whether it's managing and getting the most out of your 20, 30-year-old facility, or whether it's even your personal home, Lee Company would love to partner with you. So if you want any more information, just go to our website, which is leecompany.com, and we'd love to reach out. Or you can call the main line, which is 615-567-1000, and just ask to speak to Eric Hill. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks to all of our sponsors this morning. And now we will give you just a few minutes to enjoy your breakfast before we hear from John Ingram this morning. Enjoy.
Well, good morning. It's my pleasure to add my welcome to your being here early in the morning. It's always worth getting up for this breakfast, thinking together about our community and how it moves forward. I'm pleased to update you on two things that relate to the university, one of which also relates to our theme today. When I was last with you, we had just had hurricanes in Houston, as you might recall. I announced that day a small fund for hurricane relief that resulted in students and faculty and friends donating about $50,000 that has now funded immediate relief for about 23 students who were affected by that, but also is helping fund mission trips where students will do humanitarian work. One has been completed in Houston, another one in Florida. Thanksgiving, another group of students leave. Spring break, they will be leaving again. And the only reason I mention that is it's amazing how quickly something that is a huge disaster leaves the scene. Isn't it amazing at how quickly CNN will move from being absolutely consumed to the next disaster or the next news event? And it's so easy for us to forget that. And yet, as I mentioned before, we're committed to this effort throughout this academic year. And we would ask you to pray for our students and others who will be traveling and bringing a bit of Nashville's humanitarian interest and spirit to these communities. We are here this morning to talk about soccer, and that's a timely thing at Lipscomb as well. We have just finished our Atlantic Sun play in soccer, and we have, I think, some good news about that play and some great anticipation. Our women, for the first time ever, are co-champions of our conference. They will go to their tournament on Friday and Sunday of this next week. The winner of that tournament, as you know, goes to the NCAA. And our coach, Kevin O'Brien, because of the performance of that team this year, was named the Coach of the Year in the Atlantic Sun. And Kevin is here. Kevin, stand up, will you? Kevin, where are you? There he is, out there. You know, when you move to Division I, it takes a while sometimes to move a team to that level of play, but Kevin has done a tremendous job of that. And Kevin, we look forward to that Friday night game. And when you come to the board meeting on Saturday, we look forward to a wonderful report from it. And our men are doing well as well. They've finished the tournament, and they are the 4th seed in the Atlantic Sun tournament. And we anticipate on Friday night that Coach Charles Morrow, as he wins the first game in that tournament, will also receive his 100th win as a Lipscomb University soccer coach. So would you welcome Charles? Don't know where you are, Charles, but there you go. And then we're excited about basketball. It starts a week from Friday night. We will be hosting Emory University from Atlanta. It will be our homecoming. And I don't have any authorization to do this at all. But if you'd like to come to that game, I invite you to come as my guest. And if you'll call my office, I'll negotiate with the athletic folks. Use whatever power I have. And we'd love to have you open Atlantic Sun play in Nashville with that exciting game between Lipscomb and Emory. Obviously, all of that is a prelude to the topic of this morning's conversation, and that's soccer in Nashville. Not only at the collegiate level, not only with your small children and grandchildren that play it at the very, very beginning of their athletic careers, but also now as we think about it at a much more professional and profound level. We have two speakers this morning, each of which will bring a perspective and be a part of our conversation. Will Alexander, as you know him, is someone who's been involved in our community for a long time, as a lawyer, as a public servant, as someone who is an entrepreneur and now is the senior director of private equity for Hall Capital. I got to know Will on the bus, I believe, in Leadership, Tennessee several years ago. And we are so pleased that he has taken an interest, brought his spirit to this endeavor. Will is a graduate of the University of Texas and also a lawyer from the University of Texas Law School and a member of our community. John Ingram, who obviously has put tremendous effort into this exciting adventure. John is the chairman of Ingram Industries. He's also chairman of the Ingram Content Group. He has been a force in business and also public service. John and I shared a journey together several years ago when Mayor Carl Dean named us as co-chairs of the Green Ribbon Commission for Nashville. I didn't know John very well. He might not have known me very well, but all of a sudden we were co-chairs of something larger than ourselves, worked together for a year or so and made recommendations to the mayor, some of which he actually followed. That hopefully have contributed a bit to the livability of Nashville, Tennessee. I appreciate John. Not very many months ago, I had to raise $1 million for a nonprofit here in Nashville. That's a tough thing to do. And I thought, well, who could help? And because of our Green Ribbon experience, I called John and said, would you help me raise this $1 million? And here's the spirit of John Ingram. He said, yeah, I'll help you. And then he calls back a day or two later. He says, you know, I was thinking, if I'm going to help you raise it, I need to give some of it. I thought he'd figure that out. I wasn't sure, but I thought he would figure that out. And so he said, I talked to Orrin, and we've decided to, and I think the gift was about $250,000. So John is blessed. He's blessed with a great talent and great opportunity to lead, but he's also blessed with a kind and a generous spirit. Would you please welcome to our stage this morning, Will Alexander and John Ingram.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lowry. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to see all of y'all here excited about soccer. This is a big week for Nashville, and it's been a great last year as this whole effort is advanced. I'm the co-founder of MLS to Nashville, which is a group of local leaders who are committed to bringing a Major League Soccer team to our city. It's been remarkable to see how Nashville's gone from the back of the pack to one of the leaders amongst the expansion candidates in a pretty short amount of time. And what we're going to do today is talk about how we've gone to get ourselves in this position where we stand this morning. Soccer is the most popular sport in the world by a big margin. More than 3 billion people watched the last World Cup, and 1 out of 5 people around the world are soccer players. Now, I got to see the passion for soccer globally when I was a law student living in Mexico and South Africa, and again when I worked as a lawyer in Dubai. And there really are few things that could get people to put their differences and their concerns aside for a couple hours, like a soccer game. But soccer's big in the United States too. It's not just popular abroad, but it's hugely popular in the U.S. 113 million Americans consider themselves pro soccer fans, and more people tuned in to watch the U.S. men's and women's team in the last World Cup than watch the NBA Finals or the World Series. So it's not a surprise that with this backdrop, in early 2016, Major League Soccer decided that they were going to add 4 new teams and go from 24 to 28 clubs. What you can see right here behind me are the 12 cities that are in competition for some of these new teams. Now, Nashville had never been in contention for an MLS club, and we weren't on anybody's list this time. My colleague Bill Haggard and I thought that was a surprising thing, and it didn't make sense. We'd spent about 4 years recruiting companies to Nashville and the state of Tennessee from around the world, and we thought that there's no reason that we couldn't compete against these other cities that are vying for a team. The reason why Nashville wasn't on anybody's list is nobody here had tried yet. We decided to throw our hat in the ring. The first thing that we did when we decided to explore launching an MLS bid was we went to MLS headquarters in New York and met with MLS President Mark Abbott. Mark was nice to take the meeting, but he was clear that we had some ground we needed to make up. He also pointed out that there were 3 things that as a city, Nashville needed to do. We needed to show, 1, that we were the right market for the MLS. We needed to show, 2, we had the right ownership group, and we needed to show, 3, that we had a stadium plan. Back in Nashville, we came up with how we were going to go about this. First, we were going to make the case that our market was ready for the MLS. We were going to then use that and go out and build an ownership group. And last would be the stadium plan. The first thing that's essential to proving that a market's ready for the MLS is to look at the demographic and the economic data. So we dove into that. And what we found was very promising. There was some concern because Nashville is one of the smallest cities that's seeking an expansion team, but we're also one of the fastest growing. We're also, our population growth isn't just overall, but if you take a deeper dive into it, our foreign-born residents and our millennial populations are growing at a really fast rate. Those are important soccer demographics. As we looked at the numbers, the other things that we saw were really promising too. We had the fastest GDP growth, one of the lowest unemployment rates, and we had the second highest per capita income. All of this combined together, how we ranked relative to the other cities that we'd be competing against, gave us good confidence that Nashville certainly is a city on the rise, and our size would not be a liability. The next thing that's important for us in proving our market was our business community. Having an engaged business community is really important to the MLS because the sponsorship revenue is critical for teams. Now, Nashville, again, is a small city, has a disproportionate number of large headquarters here. You can look at this slide right here are all the companies in our city that have over $1 billion in revenue. This is another big plus for us. Now, as we continue to look at the market, there's some other things to point out too. One is our geographic location. We fill a great void for the MLS in the Mid-South and can draw from the region around us. In fact, if you put an MLS team in Nashville today, we would be the closest club for almost 13 million people living in parts of 9 states. The Titans and the Preds do well drawing from around the area, and the MLS club could do the same. You know, our status as an entertainment capital is something else to point to that really is unique among cities around the world. We have a global brand. The MLS wants to grow the league around the country and around the world, and being affiliated with a global brand like Nashville is something that's really helpful too. And the final thing is how have we supported our teams so far? Great attendance with the Titans and the Preds. Titans sold out more than 100 consecutive games when they moved to Nashville. The Preds, at that time, one of the NHL leaders in attendance, and we saw what happened later on in last season. And then we also had great attendance for international soccer matches that have been being played in Nashville really for about a decade on a periodic basis. So we felt good about our market. The next thing we need to do, though, is something that couldn't be on a PowerPoint, and that's looking at Nashville's community, because we knew that this was going to be a big strength for us. So we formed what we called the MLS Organizing Committee. Nashville had a great history of people working together to tackle big projects. This group was 22 members. It was heavy on CEOs. The first member was Jose Munoz from Nissan. Second was Barry Stove from Jackson. But we also had political leaders like Governor Bredesen and nonprofit leaders like Eugenia Clark. We announced this group in August, and the MLS bid was officially underway. We were getting some national attention, and it was great to be part of the contest, but it wasn't time to rest. There was still a lot to do. We certainly had the ownership part of the bid and the stadium plan to tackle. On ownership, what the MLS looks for is they look for a group that's led by a lead investor who has deep ties to the community, who has extensive business experience, somebody that's got a long-term time horizon and a passion for sports. And importantly, because the MLS has built a great culture, they also want somebody that's easy to get along with and has a great demeanor. Now, this is a tall order, and a lot of successful bids in all kinds of different sports leagues have failed because the owner wasn't the right person. Bill and I concluded pretty early on in this process that the best person in the world to lead Nashville's MLS bid would be John Ingram, and that's the first person that we went and talked to about this. Fortunately for Nashville, John was excited about bringing the MLS to our city as we were, and he took on the challenge of being the lead investor in what we hope will be Nashville's future MLS team. And in December, he was announced that he would take on that role. And now I'd like to turn it over to John to continue the rest of the story.
Thank you, Will. Are we on? Good, good, great. Well, I'm delighted to be here, and none of this would have happened without Will and Bill's foresight. So, I mean, we really have them to thank. And I can't say that a year and a half ago that this would have necessarily been on my radar, but when Bill and Will approached me, what had been on my radar was the desire to be intentional with what I did with the rest of my life, and there were like three things that were key, that are key criteria for me. And number one is it fun, and do I have a passion for it? And I've always loved sports, and I thought, well, that certainly is a checkbox for that. Secondly, is I'm really interested in leaving a legacy for my family, and have children and nieces and nephews. Hank is here this morning and has been working really hard and effectively helping us with this project. But is this something that they would enjoy, and a legacy for the family, and a check mark there? And then in meeting with Will and Bill, it was pretty clear to me from the work that they'd done that Nashville really had the capacity to do this, and that this was something that would be meaningful to Nashville. And I'll never forget, it was December. It was a week or so before Christmas, and it was a Friday at lunchtime. It was a beautiful day, and I went down to the mayor's office, and when I kind of, there's a courtyard outside the courthouse with green space, and they were playing soccer there. And I went into her office. I sat down with Megan, and I said, Megan, look out the window. They're playing soccer. It's a sign. She said, well, John, they play soccer every Friday. And I was like, but it's still a sign, okay? I mean, every Friday. I mean, that's what's happening. But we had a good laugh about that. But it was true, and I think it was. And you know, there's been a huge amount of hard work, because right after I announced my intentions, MLS had their December meeting, and we had always been led to believe that applications were going to be due maybe in the first quarter or the middle of the year, and MLS said, nope, applications are going to be due the end of January. And we're like, when? And it was like, oh boy, we had a lot of work to do, and especially some of the other cities we were competing against had been working on this for a year or two. But with Will and Bill and my Ingram colleagues and you know, a number of others, Mark Cate and the Stones River Group, Keel and Zach Hunt, and some others, we've really coalesced a great team and did some amazing work and got our application in. And there may be I don't know, there we go. There's a picture that's January 31st of last year when we presented our application to MLS, and that's Deputy Commissioner President Mark Abbott in the middle. And like Will said, I mean, they were friendly, but I can't say that they were hugely encouraging, because if there were 12 cities that had submitted applications, I'm figuring we were somewhere in the 10 to 12 range on that list. There were other places that were much further ahead, but okay, it's not where you start, it's where you finish that actually counts. And so, as Will said, the MLS was quite clear about the things that needed to happen, and so we set about working on those in earnest. And obviously, ownership was one, and even though we're the majority owner, we've added some others that I'm just delighted about in other capacities, and so I feel very good about our ownership group. I think it's excellent. And then there, before we talk about the market and stadium, there was actually another really important thing that happened during the springtime. Some of you might know there was another effort that had gotten started that was really around the tier down level, the USL League of Professional Soccer, and David Dill and Marcus Whitney and Chris Redditch had gotten a license to start a USL team, and to their immense credit, we were able to come together and form one group of really professional soccer. And that was really important, because I think if there were two efforts in some way in competition with each other, I think this would have made everybody's job a lot harder. So my hat is off to them. And there's actually we've got a table of our Natalie attired soccer people, our Nashville Soccer Club in the middle, and we have a goal before our USL team starts in March of next year of setting a record for the most tickets that have ever been sold before the launch of a new USL team, and that's 6,200 tickets. We've sold 2,000, and Court Jeske, who's our CEO, and team are there, and they would be more than happy to talk to anybody that's interested in season tickets, because actually today, November 1st, is the day that we open it up to the public. So we're really excited about that, and whatever happens with MLS, we will be playing high-grade professional soccer at the First Tennessee Park starting in March of next year. So really excited about that. Will also mentioned about the market, and it was true. I mean, without an existing pro team, most teams that move up to MLS have had a USL team that has, had a strong record over a number of years, and we didn't have that. But what we did have was a couple of really important events in July. We had a Gold Cup national team game at the beginning of July, and then a Premier League game friendly at the end of July. And in addition, we had the commissioner and his team came down the beginning of July, the day before the national game. And that was really important, because, it's one thing to talk about, talk about things, but, we talked about how Nashville is a vibrant city, how there's so much going on, our city bird's the crane, things like that. And not only that, that Nashville is a collegial place and a collaborative place. And I also want to give a shout out to both the Titans and the Predators, because at our initial lunch with Commissioner Garber, we had the CEOs of both the Predators and the Titans. And Sean Henry and Steve Underwood took the time to come. And not only did they come, but they were very supportive. And that just doesn't happen many other places. And I think it's the first time that the commissioner had ever seen that kind of collegial and city spirit. And that was impressive. But more impressive was the fact that we had over 47,000 fans show up for the U.S. team game against Panama, and then we had 57,000 at the end of the month with the friendly, and with 40,000 plus kids playing soccer in the region. I mean, Nashville's got a lot going on in that area. The third piece, and arguably the hardest, is the stadium, and that's what we're in the midst of right now. And I would say there were several places that were explored, but the mayor landed on the idea of putting the stadium in the fairgrounds, and we're very supportive of that idea because, number one, MLS wants stadiums that are in the urban core. And the stadium may not be exactly in the urban core, but it's very close to it. And secondly, it sits at the kind of at the front door of the international community and the Wedgwood Houston expanded area. There's something really right about the stadium being in that particular place. And one of the other things that the mayor was clear about when we got together was that she said, John, I'm willing to do a private-public partnership, but the big P needs to be on the private. And we got that, and I'm really proud of the deal that we were able to negotiate with the mayor's office, because I think it does that. It is mostly paid for by the private sector or by user fees or the like that be generated from the use of the stadium. And I think it's good economically for Nashville too. I think once the team is here, University of Tennessee did some studies for us, Bill Fox over there, that would create almost 2,000 jobs, about $80 million a year of revenue and $15 million of taxes, which is all good. But I happen to think the biggest and the most important aspect of this team and the opportunity to bring MLS soccer to Nashville is that soccer's a unifying sport. And I don't know if any of you were at the public session that we had last week that Vice Mayor Briley presided over, but there were 700-800 people that were there, and I think 75-80% of them were pro soccer. And those that got up to speak and those that were in attendance, I think what I looked back and can remark about is we had young people there, we had old people there, we had men and women and people of all kinds of different culture and background. We speak 100 languages or more in this city, but I guarantee you there's one language that each one of those different groups speak, and that's the language of soccer. And in a world that has unfortunately gotten as divisive as our world has gotten, and sometimes as mean as it's gotten, I think we need more opportunities to come together. And I think that soccer will be one of those most unifying forces. And I think it'll be something like our symphony hall that my mother was largely responsible for and whatnot. I mean, it's a place that generations of people that I'll never meet will be able to go to and enjoy over time. So we're really excited about that. I know that there's a Q&A session, but before I get to that, if any of you are interested in learning more about what we're doing, I mean, you're very welcome to go to the MLS to Nashville website, and there's both a petition to sign if you're in favor of soccer, as well as there's the Metro Council has got a survey that's on there that you can fill out as well. And if any of you have not done it and are passionate about bringing soccer to Nashville, I do encourage you to reach out to your local council person. They care about what you think. They care about what their constituents think, and that would be very important to do. And finally, as I mentioned in the middle, if you want to get started with professional soccer, buy season tickets to Nashville Soccer SC, our USL team. It's going to be a terrific level of soccer at a fantastic stadium, and you're going to get in early because tickets go on sale today, and those that get in early will have a preferential position should the MLS work out in the future. And the last thing I would say is that I appreciate you getting up this morning, and I believe very firmly that Music City will become Soccer City. And I look forward to being a part of that. Thank you very much.
Don't forget to send your questions in. Kate and I will get to as many of these as we possibly can. I know there's going to be a lot, and we're going to try to field them and use as many as we can. You didn't show a diagram of the site plan, and this is a much bigger deal than just a stadium for soccer in terms of the fairgrounds and the repurposing of the fairgrounds. So will one of you walk us through, verbally at least, what else is going to happen at the fairgrounds and why that's important?
I'd be happy to try. I mean, there are a number of things. There's existing programming over there, flea markets and the Christmas Village, and the city's already committed to, if you will, rebuilding those buildings and structures. And I think I think that will be fantastic for the expo side of the business. On the other side of soccer would be the racing community. And, we're looking forward to working with both of those communities. And should we be fortunate enough to move forward and get this team and be building the stadium, we'll be working with all these constituencies on how we can be smart about using the stadium to maybe have bathrooms and concessions and other things that are available to all these different groups. There's also, part of our deal, and I would say if there's, I think we've done a lot of things really well in this. If there's one piece that I think we could have done somewhat better, is that an essential and integral part of this deal is not only land for the stadium, but up to 10 acres to develop on kind of adjacent to the stadium. I think the way it was presented left some belief that maybe that could be taken out and everything would be okay. And I'm here to say very definitively that it's an essential part of the economics of the whole deal, and that it cannot be taken out without it threatening the whole deal. And that just needs to be clearly stated in the whole piece. That's number one. Number two is that MLS is very, very interested in the fan experience, and part of the ability to develop over there is to assure MLS that there will be things for fans to do, before and after games. And oh, by the way, these same amenities will be available to the people at the flea market, on racing days, and then to the general, to the neighborhood beyond that. And then finally, at the end of the day, none of that development can happen without the Metro Council's approval. So it'll all have to go back eventually to the Metro Council for approval. So, there have been a lot of moving pieces, and some of it is a work in progress. But I believe in being a great neighbor, and look forward to working with all the groups over there, in making the fairgrounds a great destination.
I know affordable housing was talked about as a piece of that. Can you just touch on that?
Sure will. I mean, I know that that's an important piece, and I would say, one of the things when the Turners, Jay and Steve, agreed to both participate in terms of the team ownership, I asked them. I said, look, if we have some ability to develop over there, I would like you to be involved. And I wasn't thinking so much about the Gulch as about they care a lot about Nashville, and as does my family, and the whole idea of affordable housing is not just a throwaway item to either one of us. I mean, I think having spoken to a number of council people in the last little bit, we're going to work hard to say something more definitive about that before the vote on Tuesday night, because both of us strongly believe that is an element that needs to be not just a token part of this, but a real material part of it. and it will be.
Well, we've talked about the Turner family. Of course, for those that don't know, they're the family that developed the Gulch, and it made a huge difference in the development of Nashville.
And
But-
Attorney, could I just say about that? You know, that I've heard some people concerned about, well, if it's the Gulch, then that's more high end. And I would say that people should not be, I mean, that what will be developed over there will be appropriate for the area, not a replica of the Gulch.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
But Will, tell us about the Wilf family. They're fairly well known as majority owners of the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL. But as I was reading about them last night, this is a very serious family with a lot of wealth, basically New Jersey, New York area people. Tell us about their role and what that may mean for Nashville.
You want me to do that? Sure. Well, I mean, that one may be better for me because I was really the one. Mark Wilf, who's the president of the Minnesota Vikings, is on the Vanderbilt board, and he had a son that graduated from Vanderbilt. And they had a very strong interest in MLS, wanted to have MLS for Minneapolis to go with the Vikings. They were not successful with that, but I was talking to him, and you know, they had done their homework and were interested, and a few of us went up to go see them in April, and I thought we were going up for them to tell us a few things, but it felt a whole lot more like a job interview, and I think they were really evaluating whether we were serious and maybe capable, and kind of you fast forward, they are interested, and they have an investment wing of their enterprise that invests in sports franchises, and the media spent a lot of time talking about or referring to their wealth. The most important thing to us by a long shot, other than them being really good people, and we get along culturally, our organizations do, and I don't want to downplay that because that's hugely important, but they have a wealth of experience in terms of sports management. Everything from, we've got the guy that was responsible for their $1 billion stadium that they brought in on time is now embedded in our whole stadium development process. And everything from corporate sponsorships to concessions, they're experts in all this stuff. And we've got so much to learn. And I think both the city and it should feel really good that we have that kind of expertise on board.
So what will your next step be if Metro doesn't approve the financing plan? And then what if they approve the plan, but then we don't get a team? Let's do a few what-ifs moving forward.
Well, you can control what you can control. We have a USL team that's starting in March, and I've told the team, and I tell everybody here, if for some reason we're not successful, we're going to build the best USL team that we possibly can, and hopefully the best one that's ever been out there, and show MLS or whomever else that they made a horrible mistake.
So here are a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Will, I'll direct these to you. Here are a couple of questions from the audience. How many games a year? Most of us know the NFL plays.
So 17 home games a year,
Okay.
and then there'll be probably a few other games that could be in a playoff tournament type setting or exhibition.
And what would the season be? What
Season runs March to October, and
Okay,
then
summer.
and the playoffs are going on
Right now?
So a team that's
Okay.
I saw one last night. If a team that's successful could play all the way into December.
Have you picked a mascot yet?
That'll be John.
There are things like that, Turney, that what I tell people is it's a little bit like you're staring at dessert when you've got vegetables to eat on your plate. So we're working on eating our broccoli. That'll be a fun thing to do in the future if that opportunity happens.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Can you tell us about interest in bringing a women's professional?
Oh yeah, no, I think both on the national level and on the local level. When we made the announcement that we were going to play at First Tennessee Park, the mayor was there, and I don't know, it reminded me of the movie The Graduate. Dustin Hoffman's floating around in the pool, and this older gentleman comes up to him. He's like, Ben, I've got one word for you, and it's plastics. And at the moment that was similar was the mayor kind of grabbed me right before we were walking onto the field, and she said, John, 2 words, women's soccer. And what I would tell you is we fully intend to have a women's professional team. Now we've got our hands like more than full at this moment and need to get this first part done. But I really firmly believe in 3 to 5 years, we'll have it or be firmly on our way to having a women's professional team alongside the men's team here.
Well, here's a question I'll direct to you. How many seats in the stadium? And the question says, in a perfect world, when will the private portion of the investment plan to be paid? But rather than phrase it that way, walk us through sort of the ownership structure of how the money comes from the city and how it's paid back and how much and that sort of thing.
So the stadium will have 27,500 seats, and the annual cost of the debt financing is $13 million, and $9 million will be paid by the ownership group, and $4 million will be recouped by revenue generated through taxes at the stadium.
And who picks up the shortfall, if there is one?
For the city will on the $4 million for the first 10 years.
Okay.
First 5 years.
First five.
It's $3 million the second 5 years.
And do your projections indicate a surplus? Do you think there will be a shortfall?
Teams in the MLS have gotten off to really successful starts. Certainly, you can't predict what's going to happen in the future. But you look at Atlanta. Atlanta, in their first season, has led the MLS in attendance and has broken all records. They had 70,000 people at one of their games in September. Orlando had a really good launch. So I think we expect that a team in Nashville could get off to a strong start.
Okay.
And why, just kind of on the heels of that, there's some question as to why public involvement instead of just going private. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it was never contemplated to be a private development. It was always contemplated to be a private public development. And at certain levels, there are limits to what even someone like I can do or willing to do. And I think beyond that, Nashville has a really successful history of doing private-public developments. And again, I think it goes back to the collegial nature of the way this city is operated. What I will say is this particular deal is way different than any other sports deal that has ever happened in this town in that it is very heavily private. Let me say that again, very heavily private. And people seem to forget and skip on by the fact that, there's a huge fee to get to buy the team, and we were going to be responsible for building the organization and operating losses. And oh, by the way, we're going to have to come up with training facilities and academies over time. This is a decade-long, really big commitment that people seem to kind of skip on by, all of what's brought to the table. And at the end of the day, there's no reason for a stadium unless there's a team. And then I'd finally say that I think the city is a huge beneficiary of this as well. I mean, I think economically and I think socially, this is a huge, huge positive for the city.
There's so many questions that we would like to get to. We've got limited time here, but here's, I think, a fair question that's come in, and we'd probably be remiss if we didn't ask this morning. So with 17 games a year in Nissan Stadium, or whatever it is, no, that's not right. You got 8 plus the 2, so it's 10 games a year in Nissan, and you're going to play 17. So why couldn't you do that in Nissan, since the seasons don't overlap? Why do we need a second stadium in Nashville?
The MLS is looking for markets that have soccer-specific stadiums. And John talked about the fan experience being important. And some MLS teams early in the league have played in NFL stadiums, and those are a lot of seats. And stadiums also designed for football are different. Nissan does a good job hosting some international soccer matches, but again, the intimate environment is really important to having the team succeed.
Turney, I'd say it's even simpler. MLS said they would not accept us without a soccer-specific stadium.
That's pretty simple.
Well, there you go. Here's another question from the audience. I think it's a good one. With the number of support staff needed and with the unemployment rate so low, and with affordable housing being difficult to find, what are your plans to offset that?
To say that one more time.
With the number of support staff needed and with the unemployment rate so low, is there some concern about staffing?
We haven't gotten that far. I mean, I think that particularly if we have some significant portion that's in the mixed income housing arena, wouldn't it be nice if we were an example for the whole United States, that you could have work, living and play all in one area?
Well, we've got time, I think, maybe for a couple of others. I'll ask one, and then Kate can ask the last question. John, I was fascinated to watch as you repurposed Ingram Book Company, largest book distribution company in the world. You survived the e-book challenge very brilliantly from a strategic standpoint. Talk about the future of sports in the United States. Are we at an inflection point where soccer is going to be the sport? NFL begins to decline. MLB has already declined. Is this a really smart move from that standpoint?
Well, I hope so. I'll start there. I think that part of the way to answer that is, and I'm stealing this from one of the other owners out in Portland that brought up the point that I think in the late 50s or 60s, what were the three most popular sports in the United States? Baseball, boxing, and horse racing. Things change, okay? And I think over the next generation that when you look at if you look at the demographic changes in this country, you look at the trajectory of different sports, the most positive one by a long shot is soccer. And certainly American football's got challenges with a number of things, and the others as well. I think soccer is really well positioned to be very successful, and much more successful in this country than it has been. I would go so far as to say that I think in the next generation it becomes the biggest sport in this country.
I think that's all the time that we have for today. So let's give John and Will a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, you're fine. It was a good one. I wanted to end on that. I thought it was really good.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Will, for being here this morning. Thank you all for coming. The subject of soccer is something that's very personal to me. As I grew up in Southern California and that diverse tapestry of cultures and people that gather there, not surprising you grew up playing soccer in that kind of community. Went on and had the opportunity to play soccer in college with Devin Schultz, who's part of the Ingram team. Went from there and played semi-professionally. It was part of a Christian ministry that gave me the opportunity to really travel the globe playing this wonderful sport. And in all those experiences, I learned something about this game that John has referenced that is so true. And that is that there is a spirit to soccer that is something that we shouldn't miss. Soccer is an inclusive game. You get a ball in a field, or in some cultures, you get a bunch of rags tied together and you find a street or a dirt area, and you will see people come together to play this game. It's also a sport that is incredibly vibrant. It brings about positive passion like I've never seen in people. Even here in our own country that doesn't necessarily have the same history with soccer as other nations, if you look at what Portland's done with their MLS team, it is absolutely remarkable. If you look out there and you see that the Portland Timbers have sold out every single game, and they have a season ticket waiting list of over 10,000 people, larger than almost every single college football program in America. There is a vibrant nature, there's a passion that comes with this sport as well. And then very significantly, as has been referenced, soccer is also a youthful sport. Soccer is the fastest growing youth sport in America. As I attended some of the games this summer, I looked around, and at 39 years old, I felt like I was the oldest person in Nissan Stadium watching the U.S. national team play Panama. And so as we think together as a business community and think about growing Nashville into a place that is very inclusive, a place that is very vibrant, a place that has positive passion for all that is going on, and we think about building an economy that will be healthy and will serve in a very longitudinal way this particular city, perhaps part of that equation is the game of soccer and embracing the opportunity that we have here to join in what many cities are experiencing as a very positive step forward in terms of building a city that we can all be proud of. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you at the next Nashville Business Breakfast. Have a great rest of your morning.